Lich King is dead, and that Bolvar Fordragon died with him.
This video is sponsored by Iniba.com, a new gaming marketplace bringing you the hottest deals with up to 70% discount. Get cheap workout products as well as other games. Click on the link below and use code DORON to get 3% off. Hello guys, this is Doron's Movies, and today I'll be talking about what would have happened if Bolvar never took that helmet and became the Lich King, covering the history, my speculations, and a bit about the new cinematic. So without further ado, let's get into the lore. We all know the famous scene. Arthas was defeated, Terna saying there must always be a Lich King, Tyrion attempting to take the helmet, it must be mine, seeing Bolvar and then giving him the crown. Since then, Bolvar has ruled the Scourge, but what would have happened if he never got into that position in the first place? Well, there are three scenarios. One is that Bolvar died at the Vradgate, the second one is that he never died and the Alliance was victorious at the Vradgate, and the last one is that the events occurred as they did, Tyrion just didn't decide to lay the burden upon Bolvar. In regards to the first one, Bolvar getting defeated at the Vradgate. The reality is that he barely even survived, if it can even be called survival. What happened was that he was dying of the plague the Forsaken had just unleashed, but the dragons had cleansed and burned him, and if that wasn't enough, he was captured by the Scourge and tortured intensely. However, it would be a very realistic scenario that the flames wouldn't have reached him in time and he would have died. The most likely reality at that point would be that Bolvar would become a Death Knight in the same way that Draenor did, and we would most likely defeat him at some point in the Icecrown Citadel. In turn, he wouldn't appear in the final battle, and it is very likely that Tyrion would have taken the crown and became the Lich King, or we would have destroyed the crown. Now, this whole "there must always be a Lich King" can be a video for itself, and I will most likely make a video, but it is a very grey area at the moment. Some say it is because the Scourge army was still massive, and if there wasn't a uniting force such as the Lich King, the undead would just go rampant and destroy everything in their path. Another recent lore bit with the new cinematic says that the Lich King is connected to the Shadowlands, the realm of the dead, and that he is what is holding it from merging from the material plane. It does make sense for Tyrion to know this and that there must always be a Lich King, as he was a spirit and he most likely saw all of this. Now, this is still not completely known, and keep in mind I'm making this video just after the cinematic, but let's just say that there must always be a Lich King. In this case, it is most likely that Tyrion would become the new leader of the Scourge. This would change history, but not too drastically. First, he wouldn't be there to lead the revitalization of the Plaguelands, and he wouldn't be in the fight on the Broken Shore, meaning that he would most likely survive and be here to this day, even though he would kinda be a half undead. Still, I don't think he would really fare well against Sylvanas any better than Bolvar did. This wouldn't alter the lore too much, as the Argent Crusade could still work without Tyrion and everything would really happen as it did. The storyline would be similar as with Bolvar the Lich King. Until now, it's just that there would be no Bolvar. Now, for the second scenario, what if Bolvar never died? This was also a possibility, and let's just say he somehow managed to escape what the Forsaken had unleashed. I think this would have significantly changed the lore. First is that he would most likely lead the charge together with Tyrion and others into Icecrown, and that there he could either survive or perish, but in my opinion he would most likely play a similar role of Varrock Starfang, fighting there but not being a critical part of the ultimate fight. Now, there would be a faint chance that he would be there with Tyrion and that he could take the helmet, but I honestly doubt it, as really the only reason Bolvar wanted this burden was because he was in such a terrible state between life and death that he literally had no other choice. Now, him surviving would alter the alliance drastically. He was essentially a leader of Stormwind together with Anduin when Varian was missing, and he was greatly respected both in terms of politics and as a commander of the alliance forces. I think he would change the alliance quite a bit, and he would be able to control the temper of Varian, leading to him making wiser decisions since Wrath of the Lich King. There is also a possibility that he would sacrifice himself on the Broken Shore and that Varian would have survived. There are just so many things that would be affected by Bolvar, and that it is really hard to even list them, but let's just say that the state of the alliance would be altered quite a bit with someone like Bolvar being involved. Now, lastly, let's just say everything occurred as it did, but Tyrion just didn't give the helmet to Bolvar and instead took it himself. Honestly, this would be very similar to the first scenario with Tyrion as the Lich King. I really don't see what would happen with Bolvar, at least in a positive light. In my opinion, after the plague, the dragon flames, and the terrible torture at the hands of Arthas he had endured, I don't really see how Bolvar could be saved or healed, so most likely he would just have to be put to an end in the most merciful way. This fact alone guided Tyrion into doing what he did that day on the Frozen Throne. So ultimately, Bolvar really is quite an influential character and will play a role definitely in the future. I kind of expected him to play a bigger role, but from what we have seen, it seems like he'll be like the Khadgar of the new expansion, helping us battle in the Shadowlands. However, him or Tyrion or even someone else becoming a Lich King, I really don't think that changed all that much of the lore, and the only really significant difference would be had the Lich King been destroyed. The personality of Bolvar and his unbreakable will and dedication to the light are definitely a factor, but Tyrion was also arguably of the same strength, if not stronger. Still, we will see what awaits us in the Shadowlands. Thank you for watching. Do check out what would have happened if Arthas never invaded Quel'Thalas by clicking on the screen, and also check out the second channel, Doran's Academy, for videos on real world history and science. See you next time.